Welcome to another Tell Me a Story brought to you by the Friends of the Sandwich Town Archives, otherwise known as Foster, in collaboration with Sandwich Community TV. This story is a little different than the ones that we've done before because it's a tape recording done by the Tales of Cape Cod in 1977. Tales of Cape Cod is an organization that's dedicated to preserving the Cape's history through doing audio tapes of old-time Cape Codders. We want to thank Rebecca Ambrose Dalton, archivist at the Wilkins Library at the Cape Cod Community College, and also Lucy Loomis, who was director of the Sturgis Library in Barnstable. They located this tape for us and lent it to us, which we are very beholden to them. SCTV has done their typical usual magic by making this audio into a video. A little background. You're going to be listening to Augusta Josephine Canary, last name Hoey. She is a Sandwich native, and the interviewer from Tales of Cape Cod is Ernestine Gray. Josephine Canary was born on May 6, 1900, and she lived to be 96 years old, and she lived the whole time in Sandwich. As a child, she lived in Jarvisville with her parents, Michael Hoey and Mary Dalton Hoey. Josephine married Albert E. Hoey in 1925, another Sandwich native, and they lived at 11 Liberty Street for the remainder of their lives. Please enjoy.
Today is July 11th. I'm in Sandwich talking with Mrs. Augusta Hoey. Mrs. Hoey, could you tell me your full name, please?
Augusta Josephine Hoey.
And your birthday?
May 7, 1900.
You were born in Sandwich?
Yes, in the factory village.
Where was the factory village?
Well, it was down over the railroad crossing, along by the shore, where the old glass factory was.
Your parents were also born in Sandwich?
Yes.
Did you live in the factory village because your father had something to do with the factory?
Yes, he was a glass cutter for N. Packwood and Son.
How long did he do that?
21 years.
Before you mentioned this beautiful vase that he cut, and that bell, it's really beautiful.
That bell was given to him by one of the owners of N. Packwood and Son, and he was told to cut it for his wedding bell. And it was blue, and when it was cut, the white came through. It's my most priceless possession.
Oh, really? It is beautiful. It really is beautiful. Would you know how long something like that would have taken him to make?
No.
You think more than a day?
Oh, I would think so. He worked on it probably in his spare time when he was waiting. Of course, glass cutting was more or less on the assembly line type. Each cutter had a different operation to do, and it moved along from one to the other.
Oh. Before you mentioned the equipment that he used to do the glass cutting, could you tell me that again?
Well, there was a large cone-shaped, I think it was made of tin above, and a stone below that had a series of stones. I have some of the stones that he used to cut in my glass closet that I'll show you later. And they were done from different types of cutting. They we used different thicknesses of stones we used for different types of cutting. And then there was water and sand dripped down from this little funnel-shaped thing. And it was operated by foot power, by a pedal, like pedal sawing machine.
After your father worked glass cutting, he worked as a station agent.
Yes.
Where did he do this?
In Sandwich first, then in West Barnstable, then summer jobs in West Falmouth and Cassett, because those stations were open only in the summer.
Ah.
And then he finished work, and then he worked in South Dennis for a couple of years. Then he finished his railroad career after 35 years in Barnstable.
Could you tell me again what a station agent
They
job
have
was?
charge of the station, of the freight, and the tickets. And they do not sell the tickets unless, of course, in those days there was telegraphy in the stations, and they employed a telegraph operator. And then also a baggage man. My father had charge of the books and the station itself.
Well, he had a full job.
Yeah.
Do you remember any exciting stories your father came home with?
No, I don't, really.
Could you tell me about the school you went to?
Well, it was on School Street, and the grades were from the first grade to the high school grade. And the high school was up on Academy Hill, which is now a house, the old high school. The first high school was near the Hoxie House, but that was years before my going to school.
What was the elementary school? Did you have all the grades in one room?
No, each room had 2 grades.
What kind of things did you study at school?
Well, we had reading, writing, and arithmetic. That was about it.
Did you have
History, geography.
You said you liked history and reading.
Reading, yes, and some geography.
What books did you like to read?
Well, I like to read Alice in Wonderland and Peter Rabbit and all the Thornton Burgess books.
With the Thornton Burgess books must have been very popular around.
They were, very.
Do you know when they were written?
No,
Was he around here when you were little?
he just came summers.
When your father worked as a station agent, did you travel on the train often?
Yes, I went each week to Boston to take music lessons. And then we went quite often shopping to Boston. We had employees monthly pass at first, and then after he worked a certain number of years, my mother had a pass that went. She could go anytime she wanted to.
That she went shopping.
Yeah.
She went shopping.
Yeah.
What stores did you go to?
That I couldn't tell you, because I didn't always go with her.
But how old were you when you were traveling to take your piano lessons?
Oh, 12, 13.
Do you remember how long that would have taken?
To
Ride?
Arrive to about an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Ah.
Boston.
That's a long ride. Could you tell me, do you remember any exciting stories about Sandwich?
Well, the one exciting story that I know was the Boyden Block Fire. What is now to become the Treasurer's Office of the town of Sandwich, and has formerly been where the Cooperative Bank was situated, was a block of stores known as Boyden's Block. And they reached from the parking lot where the bank is, almost to the parking lot at the Daniel Webster Inn. And they housed next to the church a paint store, a fruit store, then a little oyster bar, which I do not remember the operation of. However, the remains of the oyster shells were there, and it was known as Crocker's Oyster Bar. That was, the old gentleman was getting old, and so I don't remember it in operation. However, it was there. Then there was, at the end of the block, the hallway office, and upstairs was the Masonic Lodge, DeWitt Clinton Masonic Lodge. And then the Hoey barn, Mr. Jerome Hoey, who afterwards became president of the Cooperative Bank, was a road surveyor. And he had the usual road equipment, which was horses and tip carts and dump carts and also a hack that they drove to the station like the present day taxis with a horse to meet the trains. We had 6 or 7 trains a day.
So people would hire out the hack?
People would hire the hack to come to go to the, just like you would a taxi today. And they had a very serious fire, and he had many horses. He had perhaps 7 or 8 horses housed in the barn. And one morning around 3 o'clock, I think, was in the early hours of the morning, a fire broke out there. And his daughter, who was then in high school, or perhaps her early college years, opened the barn door and let all the horses out, and they roamed the streets until daylight, until people could corral them, so that for that reason they didn't lose a horse. And I thought that was wonderful. And then in later years, they rebuilt the barn, and just the barn, but they never rebuilt the block. And the steeple of what is now the Doll Museum was then the Unitarian Church. That caught fire, and quite a piece of it burned. And I remember that as a little girl. And across the street from there was what was known as the town pump. And it was a hand pump with a trough that the horses fed in and animals fed and everybody. Of course, in those days, all they had were buckets to fight a fire. They didn't have the wonderful fire equipment that we do today.
Did they have a regular fire chief?
Oh, no, it was all voluntary. When a fire would occur, whoever discovered the fire first there was just one police officer. And whoever discovered the fire first, sometimes people would see the reflection from their homes and so forth. They would go on the street and call fire, fire, and then they would go to the churches and ring the church bells. And all the men would, any man that wanted to or could, would go and help. No, there was no fire chief, no fire department, no organized fire department.
Oh, that wasn't scary. So, did the women do anything?
Well, no, they didn't do anything in those days.
Make coffee, sandwich.
No, everybody went home and got their own.
Do you know how long that fire burned?
Oh, well, it was out by morning.
But it took down the whole block.
Oh, yes, took down the whole block.
Was anyone hurt?
No, fortunately. See, there was no one in the stores at that time.
That was.
And of course, the paint store, being a paint store, fed the fire.
Did they ever find out how the fire started?
I don't think so.
As a young girl, could you tell me some of the things you did for entertainment?
Well, of course, in those days, the little girls played with dolls and played tea parties, and the little girls in the neighborhood here, we played that way, and then we went skating when there was ice skating on the lake, and sliding when there was sliding, but that's about all. We didn't have bicycles. Some of the children did, but I never did.
Can you tell me what one of your dolls was like?
Well, I had one doll that was 36 inches high that I still have. I don't know what condition it's in. It's packed away. But I had many dolls, and a very pretty doll carriage. I had an aunt who was very good to me. I was the only child, of course, and her brother's child, and she thought I should have everything. So she did her best to give me everything.
Do you know where she would buy these toys?
In the stores in Boston. She worked in Boston.
Could you buy many different toys and things in Sandwich if you wanted to?
Well, there were just not too many large size. You couldn't buy probably by a doll. Mr. Benjamin Bartley had a store, what is now, has been Butler's and Parkhead Square. Then there was another store down near the hardware store, John Smith's, and they were both general stores. And then Packwood later on had a store farther down on Java Street, and they had toys and to some extent, but not very much. Mr. Smith was really a clothing store. He kept men's clothing mostly.
Where would you buy your clothing, do you know?
Well, my mother would buy most of mine in Boston when she went.
What kind of other items did the general stores sell?
Well, almost everything. Mr. Bartley had fancy articles and yard goods. And he had very little clothing, but Mr. Smith had clothing.
When you were little, were you ever allowed a little spending money to go
Oh, yes.
to the store?
I always, before I went to Boston, my uncle lived with us, and my grandmother and grandfather, and everybody would contribute a little night before I went to Boston, so I could go shopping in the dime store.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah.
When you were in Sandwich, were you allowed to go to the store to buy penny candy?
Yes. Not too much, but some.
Was there a drugstore?
Yes. There was a drugstore where the apartments are now on Java Street. And Mr. Proctor, in my recollection, Mr. Proctor had it.
What would you be able to buy in the drugstore?
Well, drugs, of course, and ice cream, and soda, and I don't know about, yes, candy, box candy mostly.
Chocolates?
Chocolates.
Were you allowed to go to the drugstore and get a soda?
Once in a while. Most always when my father and mother went with me.
What would you buy there? At the fountain?
Oh, anything that appealed to you at the moment.
What did they sell?
Well, they sold strawberry, chocolate, and vanilla was the ice cream of the day, were the ice creams of the day, and sodas, different sodas, and then ginger ale and sarsaparilla. Coca-Cola wasn't heard of, I don't think.
Do you know how much the sodas cost?
No.
Or the ice cream?
10 cents was the ice cream.
That came in a cone?
Oh no, in a dish. And 15 cents, I think, for a sundae. 15 or 20 for a sundae.
And what did you get on the Sunday?
Well, sometimes cherries, sometimes strawberries, sometimes chocolate, depending on your taste for the moment.
As a child, did you attend church?
Yes.
Sandwich? What church was that?
The Roman Catholic Church.
What mass would you go to?
The only one mass they had on Sundays at that time, 9 o'clock.
Was the mass in Latin? Right?
Yes.
And you dressed all up to go to church?
Oh, yes.
Were there many Catholics in Sandwich?
Well, yes, quite a few. Not as many as there are now, of course, but quite a few.
Could you tell me how church was different, not from really what it is now, but from before it changed so drastically now? How it was when you were little? Very different?
Well, yes, it is quite different. Of course, it's in English now, as you probably know, and it doesn't seem to be as long as it was in those days. Of course, children don't like to be confined, at least I didn't.
Was it about an hour long?
Yes, 3/4 to an hour.
Do you remember who was there? More than one priest?
No, not at that time.
Just one.
There was we didn't get 2 priests until years afterwards. I don't just remember him.
Do you remember who the priest was at the church?
When I went, well, there was a Father Lyons and Father Maxwell, and then several after that I just don't But when I was younger, those were the two.
Did they have altar boys?
Yes.
Did the church ever have any social activities?
Oh, yes, they had card parties, and they had long fairs in the casino. The casino was on School Street.
What kind of card parties did they have?
Whist.
Were children allowed to go?
No. At least I don't know whether they weren't forbidden to go, but I don't think they ever went.
They didn't play for money or anything?
Oh, no.
You just mentioned the casino. Could you tell me something about the casino?
Well, the casino was on School Street, just where the road goes into Pheasant Lane. And it was a large building, and they had a skating rink there, a roller skating rink there, originally. I think that's what it was built for, long before my time.
You didn't go roller skating?
No. And then they had dances there and balls there. And it was a beautiful floor, dance floor. They had balls, and then they had, for some years, they had basketball games once a week, Friday nights. The Celtics even came there and played once.
Oh my God. Do you know when that was?
No, I don't.
Did you go to the dances at the casino?
Yes, when I got old enough.
How old was old enough?
Oh, well, I used to go with my parents. They belonged to the Foresters, and they had a grand ball the 29th of May every year. And I used to go with them to what was called spectate in those days, when I was perhaps 13, 14, and then my father would take me up to dance.
Oh, that must have been nice.
Yes.
Did you wear a long dress?
Oh, no.
No. Just older woman wore long dresses?
Yes.
Oh, how long, when you were 13 or 14, how long was your dress supposed to be?
Well, about to the calf of your leg.
How old did you have to be to wear a long dress?
Well, that I don't know.
Do you remember when you had the first one?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I must have been around 18 or 20.
But later on you went to the casino for yourself, not to spectate.
No. When I got old enough to have an escort, I went.
How would that be arranged for the escort?
Well, he would invite you to go, of course. The same as they do today. I don't know how they do it today.
Call on the telephone?
Yes, or ask you personally.
How old would you have to be to start dating?
Well, that depended on your parents. I started dating about 17.
How old were you when you got married?
25.
Could you tell me how your family celebrated Christmas when you were a little girl?
Oh, we went all out for Christmas. We had a tree and the house was decorated, and I still do it. Although I'm all alone, I still decorate the house. We really went all out for Christmas. We had, as I said, my father and mother, and my grandmother and grandfather, and my uncle living with us. And we really had a very nice time at Christmas.
What kind of decorations would the tree have?
Well, at first there were candles that you could, wax candles that you could light. But I never was allowed to have mine lighted. They were always on the tree, but they were not lighted. And then there was tinsel and the balls, the same as now. Of course, there were no electric lights.
Did you tie your presents on the tree?
No, we had the presents under the tree. The tree was always in the middle of the floor, and the presents were under the tree, and they were always opened the night before Christmas.
When did you go to church for Christmas?
Christmas Day. There was just one Mass on Christmas Day.
Would you hang your stocking up?
Yes.
What would you get in your stocking?
Oh, all the nice little things that wouldn't go under the tree.
Can you remember some of them?
Well, small dolls and maybe a ball or little toys, and then I would always hang my stocking for the little kitty, and she would get a ball. awesome cabinet.
So what kind of meal would the Christmas dinner be like?
Turkey and all the fixings.
Pies?
Pies, or my mother would work for weeks, fruit cakes.
Did the church have any kind of, besides the Mass, have any kind of Christmas?
No, they would have a little party for the children in the afternoon, Christmas afternoon, give them little religious cards or gifts and little bags of candy.
I'm going backwards, but could you tell me about Thanksgiving?
That was the same. We went all out for Thanksgiving, too. We had a big dinner for Thanksgiving, turkey and all the fixings. Pumpkin pie and mince pie and cranberry sauce and all the fixings.
Nowadays, they collect baskets and they collect things and fill a basket for poor families.
Yes.
Can you remember that happening?
Well, the town used to provide that. The town would appropriate so much money for poor families, and then they would grocery baskets. They would take it around to the poor.
As a small child, did you celebrate Halloween?
Yes, but not the way they do now. We would have the pumpkins, the real pumpkins, and there would be a candle in the pumpkins, and we would go from one neighbor's house to the other, just on the street, and knock on the door or ring the bell, and then run. But there was no destruction like there is now.
Did you get any candy?
No, oh no, that was before the days of trick or treat. We never expected anything.
Did you dress up?
Yes.
What would you dress up as?
Oh, just anything that we happen to have, any old dresses or things that belong, nothing, no costumes really.
How about the 4th of July?
Well, the 4th of July was, more or less, they had a ball game in the morning, if I remember rightly, and a clam bake in the casino field. That's where the ball field was, in back of the casino, with what is now Beale Avenue and Pheasant Lane. Mostly Beale Avenue was the ball field. And if I remember rightly, there never were any fireworks at night. Until very late years, when around in my 20s, then they had fireworks. A man named Benjamin Denson set off the fireworks.
Was he from St. Louis?
Yes, and he was tree warden. And he set off the fireworks at the same place they do now, in Cemetery Point.
That must have been exciting.
Yes, but it didn't develop into the stupendous thing that it is now.
When on the 4th of July, was there a parade?
Yes, there was Horribles parade in the morning.
What was that? Why was it called Horrible?
Well, because they put on these outlandish costumes. And they were not children, they were grown-ups.
What grown-ups would do that?
Oh, the young boys and girls. And there was a prize, of course, and they did it just for fun. But the night before the 4th, they did what little destruction that they had to do. They took down people's flagpoles if they had them, and things like that. Nothing.
On the 4th, for the 4th of July.
The night before, the same as we do Halloween now, they did the 4th of July.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Were you ever in Horrible's parade?
No, I was horrible enough.
How would you spend your summer days when you were little?
Well, playing with the girls in the neighborhood, and then my mother would take us to the beach. My mother or my aunt would take my cousin and I. My cousin was a boy, but he was 2 years younger than I. And we were like brother and sister. We were brought up that way. And they would take us to the beach.
What beach was that?
Down at the Plank Walk Beach. It was a long walk, but we went down to the Sandwich Beach, and the water was still just as cold as it is now.
Ah. What kind of bathing suit did you wear?
Oh my, way down to your ankles, and pants affair, and then a skirt that went over. Oh yes, you had to be covered, of course.
Could you swim?
No, I never learned to swim too well. I could do a little bit, but not.
Must have.
And then you also had bathing shoes.
What were they like?
Well, they were like a shoe, and then some of them laced up around, tied around your ankle.
Do you remember what they were made of?
Well, some sort of a waterproof canvas.
Did you wear a bathing cap?
Yes, that was made of rubber.
You were ready for a snowstorm. Did anyone swim?
Oh yes.
Strong ones who could carry all that weight.
Yes.
Did you have a picnic on the beach?
Yes, many times we took our supper to the beach.
What would you bring?
And then as we got older, groups of girls and boys used to go and take their supper to the beach. Watch the New York boat go through the canal. That was a great pastime.
Where was it going?
It went from from New York to Boston. And from Boston to New York, and then back again. It had to start over again. But it used to come through here just about twilight at night.
That's nice.
And it was very pretty, and many people went to the beach, and we'd take our supper, hard-boiled eggs and ham sandwiches. Then as time went on, we had hot dog roasts on the beach.
Do you remember when the hot dogs came?
No.
Did you ever go on that New York boat?
No. Well, I don't know, but I remember we went on what's now Sandwich Beach Shores, and they called it Town Neck, and we went there and watched them come in through the canal. Just watched the boats come in through the canal.
That must have been an exciting time.
It was. There were very many people here.
A lot of people in Sandwich worked on the canal.
Oh yes, a lot of people.
Did you ever go down to the canals to watch them?
Oh yeah, no, not very often. But in late years, my husband and I used to go after his boat with the town hall all day. He was selectman for 17 years.
Oh.
And he also had a grocery store, and between, of course, the selectman was just a part-time job then. And by the time he got through with both of those things at night, he would say, let's get somewhere where they don't have a telephone. And I always said, someday I will build a house that didn't have a telephone, but now I'm glad to have one.
You really need one. Now they have things you can unplug them.
Yeah. But we used to go over to the canal every night, and the engineer's office was there. It's now been dismantled and moved up to Buzzards Bay. But we would sit there by this water and watch the ships come in and out. We had some very nice friends who came to, that was in much later years. That was, 15, 16 years ago. And we would watch them. We had these friends who had cottages up. They had begun to build up Sandwich Beach Shores. And these friends came from Worcester and Rhode Island. We would all gather over there, and the men would go and sit with the engineers and talk to them, and some of them would play cards, and the women would sit in the cars, and they would congregate either in one car or different cars they parked together, and we would discuss different problems, recipes, and dressmaking, and the neighbors, and but that was in the 60s, and that was about 15, 16 years ago, 17 years ago. Because my husband's been gone 40 years.
How long did he have the store?
4 years, 5 years. His own store, and he worked for the First National Stores for 30 years.
Oh, I didn't know the First National was that long.
Oh, yeah.
Where was it?
Well, in the first place, it was in a building that was directly across from the Daniel Webster Inn. And then it moved from there down into the place where these apartments are on Java Street. And that's where they built the Buzzards Bay store, and they did away with the smaller stores. It was a small store. It wasn't a big supermarket. It was just a grocery store. And then when they moved down into that block where the post office was and a barber shop and my husband's store and the drugstore, they put in a little meat counter. They called it a pony market.
Where was that?
Well, I don't know. That was just their way of calling it. And they put in this little meat counter. And then when they built the Buzzards Bay store, they discontinued all the smaller stores. And then he went into business for himself, which was not the proper thing to do. But he did it, however, because he was born and brought up in the town, and he knew everybody, and he knew their circumstances. And they would come into him, and with a hard luck story, and he would let them have credit. And the result was that he just had to go out of business because
She's not too bad.
and after he got through at the First National, both my mother and I said to him, now you have had that responsibility for 30 years. Now go into a bank, because he was a wizard at figures. Go into a bank or go into an office where when 5 o'clock comes, you can put your hat and coat on and say, well, they have got to take care of it. But no, it seemed to be his life, and he did it. He was very sorry for that. I think it really pays some respect as well. And now all this stuff is going to be recorded for posterity, and it isn't worth anything.
Did your school, when the canal opened, did your school do something for the celebration?
Not that I remember.
It's funny being so close.
Yeah.
Do you remember Prohibition?
Yeah.
What can you tell me about that?
Well, nothing except that you couldn't buy any liquor. Of course, there were plenty of bootleggers, and there were plenty of rum runners off our coasts.
Did you know, did people around here make their own?
Yes,
A lot of people make their own?
I think so.
What do they make?
Well, beer mostly, I guess, is all they could make. I don't know. I never made it, so I...
Do you remember before Prohibition, if a lot of people drank?
I don't think so.
Did they have like a tavern?
Oh, yes, they had the hotel, was known as the Central House, then that had a bar. Then there was one down near the railroad, a regular bar room down near the railroad, in my recollection.
Could only men go in these places?
Only men did. As far as I know.
What were the bootleggers? Who were they? What were they doing?
Well, that I don't know. I don't remember that there were any bootleggers around here. Of course, there must have been. I know there were plenty of rum runners because the Coast Guard were busy all the time with them coming ashore. But what they did with what they landed, I don't know. But I don't think there were any bootleggers around here. There may have been.
Do you remember when Prohibition ended?
I remember when it ended, but I don't remember the date.
Do you remember what the people, how the general attitude was?
Well, they didn't seem to be elated over. They probably were, those that like liquor.
You You told me before that you couldn't finish school because you were sick.
Yeah, I had chronic appendix.
So that just kept coming up.
10 years.
So what did you do for the 10 years?
Well, when I came out of school, I went to work in a little stationery store that was down next to the hardware store. I worked there, and then I took private lessons in shorthand and typing from a woman in Saginaw, and I went Keith Carr to work when World War I began, 1917.
And what was your job at?
I was stenographer.
So you took shorthand.
Shorthand and typing, and I typed my shorthand notes.
How was the equipment then?
Well, you just had a Underwood typewriter, and it was not electric, of course.
How long would you work? How many hours?
From 8 to 5.
How many days a week?
5 days a week and half a day on Saturday.
How much did you get paid?
$50 a month.
Oh, they paid by the month.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a common thing?
I think so, from big companies like that.
Do you remember anything strange or different that happened while you were working for the Keith Carr?
No,
Something came up in the
no, just
stenography.
hard work.
Was it?
Well, not hard work, but it was busy work because the factory was going full tilt. They were making cars for this government. Also, they were making the French cars, the 40 and 8 cars.
These are train cars.
Railroad cars, freight cars. And the 40 and 8s were those little small cars for the French government, and that's what happened. They had this huge contract for the French government when armistice was signed, and of course it was all canceled, and that really put the car shop out of business. Practically, they struggled along for a few years afterwards, but they had all the material and all the equipment for the 40 and 8 cars, and they were like everything else. When the war ended, they had no more use for those small cars.
Yeah, I wonder why they wanted the small cars to begin with.
Well, I don't know. That was what the French government used, these little small cars. You've seen the 40 and 8 parades, the little cars they have.
No.
No? Well, they have these little small freight cars. They're little. Well, they hold 40 horses and 8 men. They're supposed to. That's why they're called 40 and 8.
Oh.
40 men and 8 horses. I mean, I got it backwards. I hope that's all. No.
So you worked at the Keith Carr
Yeah.
during World War I. How long did you work?
Oh, I think till 1923 or 4, from 17 to 1923 or 4, and then I went to work at a shirt factory that was up in Saginaw now, where they make leather handbags. I went to do the bookkeeping and the office work in general up there. And I worked there when I was married, and I worked there for a year or two after I was married.
What was that place called?
Just a Saginaw shirt factory.
Do you know how much you got paid for it in there?
No, I don't. I was paid by the week, but I don't remember how much I got. No, I don't.
Could you remember the general attitude when World War I ended?
Oh, everybody was jubilant, of course.
Did places close down?
Oh, yes, yeah. All we girls, we teenage girls, ran in church bells, and they had a big torchlight parade.
That must have been wonderful.
Yes, it was.
Do you remember when the troops came back?
Yes.
What happened then?
Well, they came back to a small town like this, 1 or 2 at a time, of course, the boys. So there wasn't any big, but they did have a celebration. I don't know just the date, but they did have a celebration. And the boys, the biggest part of it, they had a parade.
Do you remember when your family first got a telephone?
Oh, about 1915, 14, 15.
How did it work?
Well, it worked with a crank. Had a box on the side of the wall and a tall instrument, and you cranked up the crank and gave the operator your number.
How many people do you think had a phone then? A lot of people?
Quite a
Sandwich?
few, yes. Quite a few.
Do you know who the operator was?
No. Oh, yes, it was Miss Cheval and Miss Russell, and they had an office in Saginaw at the Keith Block, and there was Miss Cheval and Miss Russell, and that's all from here. I think the rest of the girls came from Saginaw.
They must have had to know everyone in the town to get you through.
Well, they probably did.
Did you have was it a party line or a private line?
At first, we had a two-party line because we couldn't get a party line, but after a while, we had a party line.
A private line?
Private line.
Before that, if you needed a doctor or something was an emergency, how would you contact?
When you call the doctor, oh, before that, you'd have to go to the doctor. One of the men in the house would go. In those days, the doctors came out when you needed them, all hours in the night.
When you had your chronic appendix, you must have seen a doctor quite often then?
Well, yes, I did, but I didn't have my operation until 1927.
Do you know why that was?
Well, the doctor kept saying that he didn't tell me what it was until then. He just said it was indigestion. When he told me what it was, I said, all right, I will go and have it taken care of. And he said, well, you've had it for 10 years, there's no hurry. And I said, well, I won't have it 10 minutes now, I'll go today. And I did.
Where did you go?
Cape Cod Hospital.
Oh, it was there then?
Yes.
Do you know?
It was there then. It was just the house that Dr. Gleason had just left to the Cape Cod Hospital. It was just the house.
Huh. Before you were operated on, you were in pain for 10 years.
Off and on, yes. I had this attacks for nausea.
Did the doctor ever prescribe anything for you?
No.
Was there only one doctor in the town?
No, there were 3.
Who were they?
Dr. Beale, Dr. White, and Dr. Currier.
Do you remember who operated on him?
Yes, Dr. Gray.
Do you know what they used for anesthetic?
Ether.
How was that hospital stay?
I don't know. I haven't been in it for years.
But how was when you had your operation, how was the hospital stay then? Was it a long?
2 weeks.
Ooh. And they must have kept you flat for a while.
They kept you flat for a week, and then they let you go around in a wheelchair and with the aid of a nurse.
You have things like intravenous?
I don't know because I didn't. I didn't have any. Luckily, it hadn't ruptured, and so it was just removed, and that's all there was to it. So I don't know about that. I was just in the room with a woman from Dennis who had a child, and so forth. She didn't have intravenous. He for about 24 hours. I couldn't keep anything down, so they kept giving me tea several times.
The ether was very strong.
Terrible.
So did you know how long the operation took?
Oh, hour and a half, I guess.
Did those doctors that you mentioned before from Sandwich, did they also work as dentists?
No, Dr. Talbot was a dentist. We only had one dentist. I think Dr. White had passed away before Dr. Beale came. Dr. Beale came here in 1918. I think it was okay, the farm now. Full of mistakes.
Alright. Did you ever go see the dentist, Dr. Talbot?
Oh, yes.
What kind of things did he do?
Well, he pulled your teeth and filled your teeth, like any dentist.
When you pulled your tooth, did he give you anything for the pain?
Oh, a little ethyl chloride you rub on your gum. But it's a rule, it's just yanked out.
Did that ethyl chloride, did that work?
Well, it numbed you for a second or two, but you knew when the tooth was pulled, not like today. Now you hardly know it.
The fillings, those are some.
Oh, they were terrible. They didn't give you anything for those. I go to Dr. Haskell now, and it's a breeze. Yeah, I used to go to Dr. Haskell, and he was there. Now I continue to go to Dr. Haskell.
Do you remember when the family got electricity in the house?
Yeah, it must have been about 1917.
Did you like that?
Oh, yeah.
That was something.
Yeah.
So everyone had to convert all of their kerosene lamps, or how did they do it?
Well, they just disposed of their kerosene lamps and bought electric ones. Or else, if they had a nice kerosene lamp, they did convert it.
I've enjoyed talking to you very much today, Mrs. Hoey.
Well, I hope I have given you what information you desired. I'm afraid I haven't.
Oh, it was very good. Could you tell me what you owe your longevity to?
No, I'm sure I couldn't. Of course, my mother lived to be 91. My grandmother and my uncle both lived to be 86. And my grandfather on the other side on my mother's side of the house was 79. My father died at 75.
You shall,
Probably.
It's been very nice talking to you. Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming. I hope I've been of help to you, but I'm afraid not.